A father stood on a hillside near Mecca with a knife in his hand. His son was on the ground before him. The Quran tells the story in only a few verses, but the classical Tafsir tradition fills in details that have been passed down for centuries. According to those narrations, the boy himself helped his father prepare. He is said to have asked his father to bind his hands so he would not flinch, to lay him face down so the father would not have to look into his eyes at the final moment, and to sharpen the blade so the act would be quick. These are Tafsir tradition reports, not Quran, and we should hold them with that level of care. The father turned the knife. He brought it close, and then a voice spoke from above. "Stop. Look behind you. There is a ram on the slope, sent here for this moment." The Quran calls that ram not simply a sacrifice, but a great sacrifice. Where it came from, how it arrived, and why Allah chose that word for it, is what the classical scholars give the most attention to. The Quran tells this story in Surah As-Saffat in verses 99 through 113. 15 verses that move from the prayer of a man with no son to the moment Allah ransoms the boy with a sacrifice from a source no one on that hillside could see. In verse 107, Allah says, وَفَدَيْنَهُ بِذِبْهٍ Azim, and we ransomed him with a great sacrifice. The word Azim is not the word the Quran uses for ordinary livestock. It is the word the Quran uses in Ayat al-Kursi for the throne of Allah. It is the word the Quran uses for the Day of Judgment. And here, in Surah As-Saffat, it is the word Allah chooses for the animal sent down to save Ismail alayhi salam. So what made this ram a great sacrifice? Where did it come from? And why does Allah preserve the mystery in the verse itself? For the next half hour, we will walk through this story from the Quran first, then through the classical Tafsir tradition of Ibn Kathir, At-Tabari, and Al-Qurtubi. Where the narrations slip into the isra'iyyat material, we will flag it openly, because honesty about the source is the only way this story should be told. Most Muslims who grew up hearing this story heard the same shape of it. Ibrahim alayhi salam was commanded in a dream to sacrifice his son. Father and son agreed. The knife was raised. Allah replaced the boy with a ram. Eid al-Adha began. What the classical scholars give particular attention to, though, is the ram itself. Not only the hand of Ibrahim alayhi salam, not only the submission of Ismail alayhi salam, the ram, where it came from, how long it had existed before it appeared on the slope at Mina. And one classical narration preserved by Ibn Kathir from earlier sources connects this ram to a sacrifice that was offered generations before by the first righteous man to lose a son to the first killer in human history. That narration is at the isra'iyyat level, and we will treat it with the care that level requires. Our sources for this story are these: the Quran, especially Surah As-Saffat, the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir, who carries forward the narrations attributed to Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, the Jami al-Bayan of At-Tabari. And where the chain weakens or the narration belongs to earlier scriptures preserved by the people of the book, we will name it. Here is the path we will walk. First, the prayer of Ibrahim alayhi salam before he had any son at all. Second, the dream and how the classical scholars understood the dreams of the prophets. Third, the journey to Mina and the conversation between father and son. Fourth, the 3 temptations of Shaitan as recorded in Tafsir and the relation of that account to the Hajj ritual of stoning at Jamarat. Fifth, the moment the knife was raised. Sixth, the ram and what made it great. And seventh, what Allah was teaching the entire Ummah through one slope, one knife, and one creature sent down from a source we cannot see. Before we walk down to Mina, take one quick moment with me. When we read the comments under our videos, the messages come in from places we did not expect. Cities and countries we have only seen on a map. Brothers and sisters writing from places where the adhan rises over the rooftops, and from places where the masjid is one small room in a basement. It means a great deal to us. Before we begin, Share where you are watching from. The city, the country, whatever you are willing to share. It helps the next person who finds this video see that this story has reached someone in their corner of the earth. Now, to Mina. The story does not begin at the knife. It begins long before, when Ibrahim alayhi salam stood alone, having walked away from his father, his people, his city, his idols, and the fire they prepared for him. He was a man with no nation behind him and no son in front of him, and in that loneliness he turned to Allah and asked for the one thing he had not yet been given. In verse 100 of Surah As-Saffat, the Quran preserves his prayer. Rabbi Habli mina as-salihin. My Lord, grant me a son from among the righteous. It is a short prayer. 6 words in Arabic. He does not ask for wealth. He does not ask for a kingdom. He asks for a righteous son. And Allah answers in the very next verse, فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. So we gave him glad tidings of a forbearing boy. The word Halim matters. The Arabic root means patient, gentle, slow to anger, steady under pressure. Allah does not promise Ibrahim alayhi salam a strong son. He does not promise him a clever son. He promises him a forbearing son. Ibn Kathir, in his Tafsir of this verse, draws attention to that quality and explains that the description fits perfectly with what comes next, because only a soul carrying that level of forbearance could respond the way Ismail alayhi salam would respond on the slope. The classical Sunni Tafsir tradition is largely settled that this son is Ismail alayhi salam. Ibn Kathir argues for this directly. He points out that the glad tidings of Ishaq alayhi salam appear separately in verse 112 after the sacrifice story is already complete, which would not make sense if Ishaq were the one being sacrificed. Some early scholars held it was Ishaq alayhi salam, and the difference of opinion exists in the classical books. The later majority view, championed by Ibn Kathir, is that the son in this story is Ismail alayhi salam. And Allah knows best, so Ibrahim alayhi salam now has the son he prayed for. He raises him, he watches him grow. And then, when the boy reaches the age the Quran describes as balagha ma'ahu as-sa'i, the age when he could walk and work and travel beside his father, Allah sends a dream. The same Allah who gave Ibrahim alayhi salam this son is about to ask him to give the son back. The dream came at night, as Surah As-Saffat tells us in verse 102. Ibrahim alayhi salam saw himself in his sleep sacrificing his son. The classical scholars explain that the dreams of the prophets are not like our dreams. The Prophet Muhammad said in a hadith recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari that the good dream of a righteous person is one of 46 parts of prophethood. And for a prophet of Allah, scholars such as Imam al-Nawawi explain, the dream itself can be revelation. So when Ibrahim alayhi salam woke that morning, he understood the dream as a command from his Lord. And he did not delay. Reflect on what is being asked here. The surface of the test is, sacrifice your son. The deeper test is, sacrifice the son you spent your life praying for, the son for whom you walked away from your nation, the son in whom every line of your future runs. That is what is being asked. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Khalil, the close friend of Allah, the one whom Allah himself called his close friend in Surah An-Nisa, verse 125, does what only a man at that station could do. He goes to find his son. The Quran does not tell us how he traveled. The classical Tafsir tradition places the hillside of the sacrifice at Mina, the same ground where the pilgrims of Hajj gather every year. The Quran does not name Mina. The location is preserved through Tafsir and through the rituals of Hajj, which still trace the same ground. What the Quran does preserve is the conversation. And the conversation, when you sit with it, moves the heart. Surah As-Saffat, verse 102. Ibrahim alayhi salam, the father, speaks first. Ya bunayya inni ara fil manami an yadhbahuka fanzur madha tara. O my son, I see in a dream that I am sacrificing you. So look, what do you see? Notice the manner of the father. He does not command and he does not announce. He brings his son into the trial with him. He could have ordered. He could have simply acted. Instead, he asks what the boy sees, and the son, this Gulamun Halim, this forbearing boy, answers in words that place him forever among the greatest sons in the human story. Ya abati if'al ma tu'mar satajiduni insha'Allah mina as-sabirin. O my father, do what you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, of the patient. There is no protest in that answer, no negotiation, no fear. The boy does not say, I am too young. He does not ask for time. He does not ask his father to seek another sign. He says, do what you are commanded. He says, I will be patient. He says, Insha'Allah, if Allah wills, the same phrase you and I say many times in a year over small plans. That is the phrase he chooses at the defining moment of his life. The next verse, verse 103, carries one of the heaviest meanings in the Quran. Falama aslama wa tallahu lil jabin. Then when they both submitted, and he laid him down on his forehead. Aslama, the same root as Islam. The Quran is showing us that the religion we carry is named after the verb that describes what happened on that slope. Submission, not the submission of an easy moment, the submission of the most difficult moment a father could face. The classical Tafsir tradition adds detail here, attributed to Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma and others. As we mentioned at the start, the narrations describe the boy asking that his hands be bound, that he be laid face down and that the blade be sharpened so it would be quick. These are Tafsir narrations, not Quran. Where the Quran is silent, we should not pretend it has spoken. But the picture they paint is consistent with what the Quran does tell us, a boy who submitted with full awareness of what was happening. The Quran shows us father and son walking up the slope together, and what neither of them knew, walking up, was that someone else was on the path. The classical Tafsir tradition preserves a narration that is mentioned across Ibn Kathir, At-Tabari, and the writings of Ibn al-Qayyim. 3 times on the way to the top, Shaitan came to them. The first time, he came to Ibrahim alayhi salam. He whispered the kind of doubt a father might fear. Could this really be from Allah? Could a man be deceived by his own sleep? Could a father be wrong about a dream this heavy? And Ibrahim alayhi salam, without breaking his stride, picked up 7 small stones and threw them at him. Phew, Shaitan fled. The second time, Shaitan came to Hajar, the boy's mother, in the camp below. He told her where her husband was taking her son and why. He gave her the chance to call them back. He gave her the chance to undo the obedience, and Hajar, who had once been left in an empty valley with a baby and a skin of water, and who had walked 7 times between 2 hills looking for life, said no. She said, if my Lord has commanded it, my Lord has commanded it. She picked up stones and threw them at him. The third time, Shaitan came to Ismail alayhi salam himself. He told the boy how young he was. He told him how much life was ahead of him. He told him his father had misunderstood. And the boy, walking beside his father, picked up stones and threw them at him. 3 places, 3 stonings. The narration, as it appears in the classical Tafsir tradition, does not come through a chain in Sahih al-Bukhari or Sahih Muslim. It is preserved at the Tafsir level, attributed mainly to Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, and through reports, the early scholars accepted as part of the explanation of the surah. So we honor it as Tafsir, not as Sahih Hadith, and Allah knows best. What the scholars are agreed on is this: the 3 places where the pillars of Jamarat now stand, Jamarat al-Sugra, Jamarat al-Wusta, and Jamarat al-Aqaba, are where every Hajj pilgrim walks past and throws 7 small stones. The stoning ritual itself, established by the Prophet in his farewell pilgrimage and recorded in Sahih Hadith, is performed at those 3 pillars in Mina, and the rite carries forward in the Ummah to this day. So when you see the pilgrims on the news, the river of white passing the 3 pillars, what you are seeing is the Ummah of Muhammad stoning the memory of Shaitan in the same places the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam stoned him first. The story does not end at the 3rd pillar. At the top of the slope, the knife is still waiting. Before we go to that moment, one quick word. If this kind of video, sourced, slow, anchored in the Quran and the classical Tafsir tradition, is what you want more of from this channel, the most useful thing you can do is share this video with one person you know who would benefit from hearing the full version of the story. May Allah reward you. Now, back to the slope. They reached the top. Ibrahim alayhi salam laid his son on his forehead, as the verse describes. The boy did not resist. The father raised the knife. The classical Tafsir tradition includes a detail we should be careful with. Some narrations say the knife, when it was brought down, did not cut. That Ibrahim alayhi salam tried again, and the blade would not pass through. These are Tafsir tradition reports, mainly from the early generations, and they are not in the Quran. The Quran does not describe whether the knife touched or stopped above. The Quran simply moves to what came next. Verse 104. وَنَدَيْنَهُ أَنْ يَا Ibrahim, and we called out to him, O Ibrahim. Verse 105. قَدْ صَدَقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا إِنَّ كَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. You have fulfilled the dream. Indeed, thus do we reward those who do good. Listen carefully. Allah does not say, you have completed the sacrifice. Allah says, you have fulfilled the dream. The dream itself was the test. The dream was the command. And the moment Ibrahim alayhi salam went forward with what he had been commanded, with full intent, full submission, no withholding, the dream was fulfilled. The test was passed. The sacrifice itself was no longer the requirement, because the requirement had only ever been submission. Verse 106. Inna hadha lahu al-bala al-mubin. Indeed, this was the clear trial. The Quran itself, in Allah's own words, names this what it was, a clear trial, perhaps the clearest trial of any prophet's life. And Ibrahim alayhi salam passed it not because he killed his son, but because he was willing to, with no condition of his own. The lesson is one most of us spend a lifetime learning. Allah is not asking us for the outcome. Allah is asking for the submission. The dream is fulfilled the moment we say yes, not the moment we complete the act. Ibrahim alayhi salam said yes when he walked his son up the slope. The rest was mercy. And mercy is what came down from above next. Verse 107. وَفَدَيْنَهُ بِذِبْهٍ Azim, and we ransomed him with a great sacrifice. فَدَيْنَهُ, we ransomed him. The verb fada, as Al-Qurtubi explains in his Tafsir, carries the meaning of buying back, redeeming, paying a price to release a captive. The same root is used in the Quran for ransom paid for a prisoner. Ismail alayhi salam was the one being ransomed, and Allah himself was the one who paid. The price was a sacrifice. But the Quran does not say a sacrifice. The Quran says a great sacrifice, Azim. And the classical Tafsir tradition spends pages on what that word is doing in the verse. Ibn Kathir, in his Tafsir of Surah As-Saffat, brings several positions from the classical scholars on what made this ransom great. One position is that it was great in form, large, well-grown, unmistakable when it appeared. A second is that it was great in source, that this was not an ordinary animal pulled from a passing flock, but an animal brought from outside the natural order of things. A third, which the classical narrations lean toward, is that the sacrifice was great in meaning because the ransom was for a prophet on behalf of a prophet sent by the King of all kings. The greatness was the whole transaction, not only the animal. The Quran does not describe the ram's appearance. The Quran does not say what color it was, how big it was, or where it came down. The Quran preserves only that it was great and that Allah was the one who provided it. The classical Tafsir tradition fills in the picture with narrations that vary widely. Some say the ram came from Jannah. Some say it was sent by Jibril alayhi salam. Some say it was a creature prepared and preserved for this moment from generations before. We are going to look at one of these narrations in particular because Ibn Kathir himself preserves it. But we have to be honest about its level before we walk into it. This narration is at the isra'iyyat level. That means it is part of a body of material in the classical Tafsir tradition that traces back to earlier scriptures, preserved in Islamic books and treated with caution by the scholars. The Prophet instructed us, as recorded in Sahih al-Bukhari from Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, neither to believe nor to disbelieve the reports of the people of the book, but to say we believe in Allah and in what was sent down to us. We carry the spiritual reflection without treating it as Quran or Sahih Hadith. With that framing in place, here is what the classical tradition records. Surah Al-Ma'idah, verses 27 through 31, tells the story of the two sons of Adam alayhi salam. The Quran does not name them. The classical Tafsir tradition names them Habil and Qabil, what the Bible calls Abel and Cain. Both brought offerings to Allah. One offering was accepted, the other was not, and the one whose offering was rejected killed his brother out of jealousy. That killing was the first murder in human history. The narration preserved by Ibn Kathir at the isra'iyyat level says that the offering of Habil, the one Allah accepted, was a ram, the best of his flock. A ram offered with sincerity. The narration says that after the offering was accepted, the ram was preserved in a manner the narration does not explain, until the moment Allah would have need of it again. Generations passed. The flood came and went. The line of prophets ran from Adam to Nuh to Hud to Salih and onward. The world changed. And then, on a hillside at Mina, a father raised a knife over a son. Allah called from above and said, "Qad sadaqta ar-ruya," and according to this narration, the very ram that had been kept from the days of Habil came down the slope. That narration is the one some classical scholars connect to the word Azim in the verse. Great. Not because the ram was unusually large in body, but because the ram had been waiting since the first righteous offering in human history for this very moment. A ransom not pulled from this week's flock, but from the dawn of human worship. We have to be clear, that narration is at the isra'iyyat level. It is not Sahih Hadith. It is not Quran. It is part of the Tafsir tradition preserved by Ibn Kathir and others, and it is exactly the kind of report the Prophet taught us, neither to affirm nor to deny. We carry the spiritual weight of what it suggests. That Allah's mercy operates on timelines longer than a human lifespan, that the ransom was prepared before the test, that nothing with Allah is improvised, without claiming it as established fact. And Allah knows best. What the Quran does establish, with full certainty, is that the ram came from Allah, that the boy was saved, that the father was praised, that the moment was named by Allah Himself, a clear trial and a great sacrifice, and that something was set in motion on that slope that would shape the way nearly 2 billion Muslims worship to this day. The story does not end on the slope. What Ibrahim alayhi salam did at Mina was not only a personal test, it was the founding of an act of worship the Ummah of Muhammad still performs every year. The Prophet Muhammad is, in his own words, the answer to the supplication of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The hadith is narrated in Musnad Ahmad and authenticated by a number of scholars, including Al-Hakim and Sheikh Al-Albani for some of its chains. The Prophet said, "Ana da'watu Abi Ibrahim," I am the supplication of my father, Ibrahim. Because Ibrahim alayhi salam, after building the Kaaba with Ismail alayhi salam, prayed in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 129, Rabbana wab'ath fihim rasulan minhum. Our Lord, raise up among them a messenger from among themselves. That messenger, more than 2,000 years later, was Muhammad. And one of the rites Muhammad established for the Ummah, in direct continuation of what happened at Mina, is the Qurbani, the sacrifice of an animal on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, the day of Eid al-Adha. In Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu describes the Prophet sacrificing 2 horned rams on the day of Eid, one for himself and his family, one for his Ummah, for every Muslim who could not afford a sacrifice of their own. Imam al-Nawawi, in his commentary on Sahih Muslim, draws attention to that second ram and the depth of mercy in it. The Prophet remembering, on his day of celebration, those of his Ummah who had nothing to offer. The Qurbani is not a custom borrowed from elsewhere. It is the act of Ibrahim alayhi salam, brought into the Sharia of Muhammad, performed by every Muslim household that has the means on the same day of the year, in remembrance of the same slope at Mina. When you stand over your sacrifice on the morning of Eid al-Adha, or when you contribute to a Qurbani campaign because you live in a city where you cannot do the sacrifice yourself, you are doing what Ibrahim alayhi salam did. You are submitting something to Allah. You are saying, I do not own this. I never did. I return it. That is the meaning the slope at Mina sent forward into history. We began this video with a question. Where did the ram come from? By now you can see that the question itself was the lesson. The classical Tafsir tradition gives us possibilities. A ram preserved from the offering of Habil, a ram brought from Jannah, a ram brought down by Jibril alayhi salam from above the natural order. The Quran does not choose one. The Quran only tells you that it was great, that it was a ransom, and that Allah was the one who provided it. There is wisdom in that silence. The moment you focus on where the ram came from, you stop seeing what the ram is doing. The ram is taking the place of the son. The ram is accepted in exchange for the boy. The ram is the proof, written into the verse itself, that Allah does not ask of us what He asked of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He asked that one test, that one time, of the one man who could pass it, and He accepted the ransom on behalf of the rest of us. You and I are not going to be asked to lift a knife to our children. We are going to be asked, over and over across a lifetime, to give up smaller things, to leave the income that came with the haram contract, to walk away from the relationship that pulled us off the prayer mat, to break the habit of late nights that left us too tired for fajr, to set down the version of ourselves we spent years building, and to raise the knife over it because Allah is asking us to. Ibn al-Qayyim writes that the station of Ibrahim alayhi salam is the station of pure tawhid, a heart in which nothing is attached to anything besides Allah. The smaller sacrifices in our lives are how that heart is built, one act of letting go at a time. The lesson Ibrahim alayhi salam left us in this surah is that the dream is fulfilled the moment we submit, not the moment we complete. Allah is not asking us for the outcome. He is asking for the willingness. The rest is His to provide from sources we cannot see. And on the morning of Eid al-Adha, when you hear the takbir rising from the masjid, remember the slope. Remember the knife. Remember the ram that came from somewhere preserved by Allah Himself. And remember that the whole rite you are about to take part in, the Qurbani, the takbir, the gathering, the meat distributed to the poor, is the inheritance of one father, one son, and one ransom on a hillside near Makkah, long ago. Ibn Rajab, in Lataif al-Ma'arif, reminds us that what reaches Allah is not the meat and not the blood. As Allah says in Surah Al-Hajj, verse 37, what reaches Him is the taqwa, the sincerity of the one offering. So when we sacrifice, when we give up something for His sake, the size of the offering matters less than the heart behind it. Allah's door of mercy is open. Allah's door of forgiveness is open. The same Lord who provided the ram for Ibrahim alayhi salam provides for those who turn to him sincerely. If this is the kind of story you want more of from this channel, the next video we are putting out is the full story of Hajar, the mother of Ismail alayhi salam, who walked 7 times between Safa and Marwa, looking for water for her baby, and whose footsteps are retraced by every pilgrim on Hajj. May Allah accept our sacrifices and the sacrifices of our parents before us. May He grant us hearts that submit before they are asked twice. May He forgive us where we have fallen short, and let us be among those who walk in the footsteps of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Jazakum Allahu khairan for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.